So I picked up this little vise at my usual flea market up north in Pulaski not that long ago. If you watched my Followed Me Home video, I can't remember which one of them. I think it was episode 8. It was where I snagged this little guy. I brought it home, thought it was really neat. It's got an 1.5 inch jaws. So I figured I'd spend some time kind of cleaning it up. So if you look just in comparison to the size of the small vise compared to the larger one, the larger one here I had just gotten was 2 inches, and this one's 1.5 inches. It's really impressive just how tiny it is. Like, if you can see here the tape measure for comparison, it's just so small. It's kind of crazy. I know a lot of people call them a jeweler's vise. I don't know if that's actually what they're used for. I believe so. I can't imagine they'd be too useful for too much else. I probably won't end up using it much, but it's just kind of a neat one to have in the collection. If you compare it to the Stanley 299 utility knife, you can see it's not much smaller. You know, it's a smaller of the knives too. So they seem to be really well made little vices. So kind of a neat one to come across and find. So start cleaning it up and disassembling. So you can see here, even for it being a tiny vise, it does have an open capacity or jaw capacity of roughly 2 inches. So even with it being small, you can still fit some pretty sizable things in it. It appears to be really well made. And taking it apart, I can see that there is some stamping that I didn't notice before. It says, patent June 16, 1885, and this one here says it says H&B. So can you see here? I'm taking apart the brass washer that was used to kind of keep the lead screw attached to the dynamic jaw of the vise. It kind of fought me on it a little bit. So the lead screws here has got a little bit damaged, but that section of it shouldn't really matter because the way I'm going to fix it, it'll still travel, and that part doesn't actually go into the threaded part of the fixed jaw. In cleaning it up, it's kind of neat. I noticed this little 2 stamping on that lead screw. I don't know if that means this is a number 2 size vise. If maybe I believe this is a Colton patent vise. Maybe they made a size 1, which is a 1-inch jaw. Can't imagine how tiny that one would be. I gotta do a little more research on it, but it's pretty tiny to start with. The dynamic jaw is in pretty good condition. I'll only be able to get so much of it on this wire wheel here, but it should clean up pretty nice. You can see here a lot of the old paint and rust is flaking off pretty easy. That soft brass cut brush on the drill press is doing a good job of cleaning it up. There's some spots that are a little hard to get to that I'll have to use the Dremel for with a little wire wheel on it, but that won't be a problem. The casting themselves look really clean. The jaw itself is in really pretty good condition. A little bit of marking on it, but nothing bad. A little bit of paint left over on the body of the vise, but obviously not original paint. So we get that cleaned up and try to get down to the surface, cast iron on it. The anvil on this vise is in pretty good condition too. I came across another 2-inch one not that long ago, and the anvil on it had been chipped off. So that was kind of unfortunate. And I do apologize for the voiceover here. I had originally recorded audio, thought I was recording audio for all of this, but turns out I didn't have the microphone on, so I'm getting a try at doing a voiceover. So you can see here, the body of the vise cleaned up really nicely. There's no real deep pitting or chipping. it's in really good condition. Other than a couple tiny little chips on the jaw, it doesn't seem like this vise was heavily used too much, other than the kind of lead screw that had the little handle on it that's bent. But we'll try to address that later in the video. So yeah, it's one of those tiny little cracks, but really overall it's in good condition. You can see the kind of the surface finish from the casting, from when it was cast back in the day. Looks good. So the soft little, it's a stainless steel, I believe, but the brush on the Dremel is really useful for getting into some kind of tight corners and places you can't really get it with the big wire wheel. So you can see here I'm cleaning up the dynamic jaw. There's a couple little spots that was kind of hard to get to with the larger cup brush. One of those being, inside the dynamic jaw. The surface finish inside there is still pretty rough from the casting, but cleaned up well. And here I'm uncovering kind of that stamping that reveals that patent. So it says PAT period June, and then 16 1885, and then this one here. I've seen some of the other ones that don't have the H&B stamp, but this one does. So if you know more about it, by all means, please let me know. I did a little bit of research and found out that the Colton vices were patented, back in 1885. That's when the patent was approved. And they're kind of manufactured and actually right in this very area, and some of them in the town I actually live in, which is pretty cool. So there's a very good chance that this vice kind of lived up in this general area its whole life, which is pretty neat. The casting cleaned up really well, especially with that wire wheel. You'll have to excuse my dirty hands here, but you're looking at the vise, not my hands. I'm really happy with the surface finish. I like the kind of, the marks you can see from the casting and the sand casting from forever ago. The anvil's in nice condition. I really like the finish on it. And at this point, I had decided that I'm not going to paint it. I'm going to try a different type of finish. So kind of show off that kind of neat old world feel to it. So. So now I've come to that bent lead screw or handle on the lead screw. At first I was thinking I was going to just cut it off and make a new one, and then talking with another buddy kind of convinced me to try to go another route, especially with how original the vise is and how in good condition it is. I did want to try to keep it as original as possible. So what I'm going to end up doing is just try to straightening it, and then my plan was if it didn't straighten out well enough, I would end up making a new handle for it. But my goal is at least try to straighten it out first prior to really making it not original anymore. So just getting some soft leather to kind of not damage that handle. I was able to kind of bend it back into shape here, rough shape, just using kind of like the lead screw as a lever to just straighten it out a bit. And then to get out any other little remaining waves, I ended up just using the anvil on the back of my larger bench vise to kind of just hammer it flat. And it worked really well. I was happy with how it came out. It straightened out really pretty good. The hammering didn't leave any significant hammer marks in it, so that was good. And now we're on to just cleaning in preparation for the finish I'm doing. So my goal here was to just clean up any of the residual rust powder and just kind of grime, and also degrease it, because my plan is to blue it, cold blue, and then do a hot oil finish, kind of like a cast iron pan. So I wanted to just get the jaw of the vise and the body of the vise as dark as possible to start, prior to doing the hot oil. There's a few other YouTubers that I watch that did the hot oil finish on some stuff. Big Life did one on a saw vise, and he also, I believe he did hot bluing with it too. I can't remember exactly, but the hot oil. Another YouTuber did another small Colton vise like this. His was clamp-on version, but it was You Want to Watch. I think that was his channel name, if I can remember correctly. But basically, for the hot oil finish, you just take a propane torch, get the body of the vise or the jaw of the vise, whatever part you're trying to do the hot bluing on, or hot oil, and just paint it on. Here, I'm using some 3-in-1 oil. Whether that's the best oil for this, I don't know. It seemed to work fine. Didn't smell great, but most of your oils aren't going to. So just heated up the body of the vise until it started smoking when I started painting on the oil. So I wanted it hot enough to actually kind of like season in there and then bake into that cast iron kind of. It worked pretty well. I've just got a section of copper piping just stuck in the jaws of my bench vise to kind of lift this up off. Set the paper on fire there a little bit, but no worse for wear. It's only, it's not a good project unless you set your bench on or shop on fire at least once. Yeah, heating the body of the vise up until it kind of just starts smoking. Really bakes that oil in and makes it a nice, really hard finish. So I'm happy with it. Happy with how it's coming along. Basically just go through the process of heating it up and painting it on. You see it's smoking pretty good here. That's what I liked to see. That seemed to be when it kind of like worked the best, is you got the piece really hot and then kind of painted the oil on. When I painted the oil on first and then heated it up, it didn't seem to work as well. So I recommend kind of like getting the cast iron piece pretty good temperature and then painting it on. And it worked well for the body of the vise here. Now we are onto the dynamic jaw, the moving jaw. Same basic idea though, is just like get it hot and then paint it on. I do need to get some smaller paintbrushes for the garage. This one's here is kind of, you can see I cannibalized a section of it for when I was doing the bluing. But it worked just fine for something I'm going to throw away after and accidentally set on fire. You can see here that got that jaw hot, but not, not to the point where it's like glowing hot or anything from the torch. Just a good heat. It's probably, if I'd have to guess, as hot as a pan you'd pull out of the oven or something like that. So probably 300 to 400 degrees. Just obviously just a ballpark. I don't have a thermometer on it or anything, but it's smoking pretty good. But as you see, as I paint that oil on, it takes that nice kind of darker finish, especially on top of the bluing. So I was happy with it. It worked well. It's pretty easy to do. A little bit messy, but nothing terrible. So here you can see how I ended up fixing the lead screw. I made a little copper washer that I just drilled a hole through and then kind of like sanded down to be a good bearing surface for that lead screw. And then I took a little C-clip and a little section of it's actually the tubing that I used for the axe rack. Just made a little spacer and popped a C-clip on there. And it's holding in place really well. And it also makes it nice for, I can actually disassemble it without having to drive a pin out or anything like that if I want to, grease the lead screw up or take it apart for cleaning or anything like that. So I'm really happy with how it came out. I love that surface finish. I think that baked on oil looks really good. I love it on the surface of that casting. I think that 2 stamp there looks really cool. I'm very happy that I went the route of keeping that original handle, just because of how original this whole thing is and how good condition it is. I probably won't use it much, but it'll be a really cool one to just have in the collection and be a conversation piece. So, but yeah, that surface finish on the casting just looks really cool with that baked on oil finish. Really happy with it. A little copper washer kind of adds a nice little touch to it too. And it's just a piece of plumbing pipe copper that I had hammered flat and drilled a hole into. Nothing special, but I think it goes nicely with that kind of dark oil finish. I was thinking about kind of like milling the face of the jaws and the top of the anvil flat, kind of with some little hand files, but I like how the finish came out on them. And I'm not really going to be using this vise much, so I'm just keeping it original as it is. I think it looks better that way. And I can go back and file those flat if I really want to in the future, but I don't think I will. I like it just how it is. And that baked on oil finish seems to add like a little bit of lubrication still too. Works pretty well. I did not bake it onto the lead screw though. I didn't want to ruin the temper on that. I only did it on the dynamic jaw and then the body of the vise. So yeah, happy with how it came out. I appreciate you guys tuning in and watching. Again, I apologize if you guys don't like the voiceover, but kind of is what it is with me accidentally losing or not recording the audio. So thanks for watching, everyone.